Hey everyone, welcome to this live special holiday of PerfBytes. So happy Christmas, everyone. So,
Wow!
Hello, everybody.
Mark's awake.
Yeah. Happy holidays from PerfBytes.
I hope that everyone enjoyed their family, the food, they had nice presents, not gifts. I hope that it's all only performance related gifts, I guess. Normally that's how Santa is sharing gifts now, I guess.
By the
All
way,
by a
I think
service.
we're live on Spreaker now too, I think. If I did everything right.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
Yep, I think we are. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Ooh, look at
So
that.
welcome everybody. It's I think the first time the four of us have ever been on an episode together, except for endless broadcasting at Dynatrace Perform 400 years ago.
Correct.
400 years. In
Does that seem
COVID
right?
month or COVID years?
COVID years? In COVID years. Yes.
I think it was already COVID years, yeah.
That's
We
right.
were already experiencing. I still have that little packet of Dynatrace antibacterial gel that's super useful.
I
But
think
we
I
were
came back
already...
from Las Vegas with a COVID variant on
Yes.
that trip, actually.
Yeah, the pre-alpha. So welcome to the holiday Q&A. We should probably give a shout out to the sponsors, the many sponsors of PerfBytes before we really dive into anything, right? So you try to remember there's like the I think they're still alive. Tricentis is still alive from COVID. Neotis, of course, now Tricentis, but was Neotis, Henrik, that you guys are, wait a minute, Neotis died from COVID, right?
Almost. Or
that
we
more of it?
transitioned from COVID. We were
They
COVID
transitioned
18.
from
Yeah.
and of course, in Tricentis was the Flood.io. I think Evan is still there in the Flood.io world. So Tricentis Flood, which is fantastic. And Ryan Folk Consulting, who was with us at Dynatrace and probably also contracted the coronavirus without knowing it at the time. Yeah, Ryan's out there. And of course, growing like crazy are our new friends at Catchpoint, which have acquired in the meantime, right, James? They acquired, was it Web Page Test, I think?
That is correct.
Yeah. And they have all these awesome, I saw Tim Kadlec, I think, is there, and a bunch of Henrik, the other Henry Helvetica. Well, yes. Good morning, Dom. Henry's over there. So there's some really interesting things happening in the Catchpoint world. But still to this day, the unofficial sponsor of PerfBytes News of the Damned that has never really reached out to us is GT Metrics. I just want to say a special holiday thanks to the GT Metrics people, who I still use on a regular basis.
Yes,
I
it makes
think we
me
all do.
sad that my emails and phone calls are not returned. It makes me think that they're mad at me, or for some reason. I don't know. We talk about their product quite glowingly. I just don't
know.
understand.
Yeah, and anytime you say their name, GT Metrics, gtmetrics.com, like people know to go where you can. They go to a Google search for GT Metrics. There they are at Google Metrics. This is Henrik. You are kicking us off in the amazing world of live streaming video. Where are we live streaming to? And do we need to go now to the social media networks and start broadcasting things?
No, we don't. We have first of all, we are thanks for Restream that is doing an awesome job for us. So we are able to lively stream in several platforms as of now. So if you are on YouTube, then you know that we are streaming on YouTube. If you're on LinkedIn, you know that we are streaming on LinkedIn. And if you're on Facebook, you know that we are streaming as well on Facebook. So this is the magic of internet. We can stream whatever we want. So if you have a preferred choice channel, let us know so we can also add that new channel to the stream.
Although we do have some options for streaming, we've elected not to select.
That TikTok thing is not yet ready for us.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So I think we were supposed to answer a question related to performance. So this is a call before we start answering any of the questions. So if you have any questions that you want to ask during this live stream, don't forget to push it on any platform. So YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever it is, and we will try to answer those questions today during the next hour.
And in the meantime, while we're waiting for questions, I think it's worthwhile to take a look back at some of our Perfy Award winners from previous years, like Princess Kate and a few others, and talk about what makes a good candidate for a Perfy. This is someone who has, through action or inaction, caused a whole bunch of performance events to be in the news. These could be good events, these could be bad events. In the case of Princess Kate, all she needed to do is wear an article of clothing, and this crashed the British fashion industry, or push a carriage down the street, or pop out an heir to the British crown. Any
Something
one of
like
those events.
shoes or something like that.
Shoes, carriages, any a fancy overcoat, something of that nature. And then we had Princess Meghan, who did something similar for a while. And I wanted to throw it out to all of you. Who should get a Perfy this year? Mark, I think you have some ideas of who should get a Perfy, maybe for some recent bad events. And I have some thoughts as well.
I just thought of the perfect candidate, but I will let Mark go first, and then I will do my proposal.
I would. What?
Mr. Tomlinson, the floor is yours.
Oh, so I think Amazon, AWS in particular, EC2, and some of the other networking pieces that have been responsible for completely tearing down like an entire continent's worth of internet access on a moment's notice without any real, oh, it looks like Amazon's down again today. And I wouldn't say that's unusual, because the whole time that Amazon or any cloud vendor has been operating, they all go down all the time. Things happen, et cetera, et cetera. It's just this year in particular, I saw people who had, like, my dentist knows about an Amazon outage, right? Or like a neighbor who does woodworking and doesn't have anything to do with the internet actually mentioned me. Oh, I heard that Amazon was down. I'm like, what? What? Normal people in normal life that I would like, not IT nerds like us, are impacted and actually know Amazon was down. I'm like, that's a whole new level of awareness, much like the Duchess of Cambridge would have taken down through fashion. There are people in the fashion world who, maybe don't really know how the internet works, or care for that matter, to be honest. So I think there are people who don't care or know anything about the internet to their own blissful existence, who were somehow made aware of the fact that something in their life that they needed to do was unavailable because, thank you, Amazon, for an outage. So that's my nomination. And I'm not going to, talk about Mr. What's his name in the penis-shaped spacecraft. Yeah, that's just gratuitous.
Well, Mark, what about Facebook and the horrible border gateway protocol outage that they inflicted upon themselves as well?
I was going to mention about it, by the way.
My opinion, it's a very, very valid point, but I think more often than not, the majority of users that were impacted were Facebook users. And this is something that they really did to themselves in a really, but that's a good nomination too, because that was a lengthy, extended time where like they had basically erased themselves from DNS, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think
someone could have purchased Facebook.com for a short period.
Yeah, wasn't it like a BGP outage or a BGP misconfiguration or something?
It was.
Yep, they did it to themselves.
Yeah,
But I think
nice.
I think it impacted all the teenagers because Instagram was heavily impacted. And I mean, if you have any teenager at home, I guess you know what I'm referring to. It
Yes.
was depression during 8 hours, a huge
But
depression,
it
dark.
it also impacted a number of organizations that had integrated security with
with
Facebook.
Facebook.
Use
Mm.
Facebook sign in and really highlighted a bunch of those dependencies and how fragile our infrastructure can be at times.
Yeah, sadly, quite
Very
a few
interesting.
use Facebook as a sign-in option, and I know of some organizations that where I cannot even access my emails or do work, not only teenage stuff, which I would say, Henrik, I don't know if Instagram still teenage stuff. May have been 5 years ago, but those definitely are not teenagers anymore.
Yeah, it's yes. I mean, Snapchat didn't go down, so I think my daughter was at least she was not depressed at that day for sure.
Yes.
So Leandro, you mentioned that you have a thought for Perfys as well this year.
Yeah. For this year, I'm gonna nominate coming from a similar universe that we already had someone or multiple universes in this case, and it was, I think, a big worldwide event. They were very bad web sweeping sound effect, but our friends, the Spider-Man, because spoiler alert, we got some Spider-Man trying to get into movie theaters and present from people that were supposed to buy in the pre-sale some of those tickets. And
Hmm.
I heard of sites worldwide, not only in Mexico, but several countries, continents, universes, that the
Yes.
sites of the movie theaters were crashing big time because of that simple need for a spike test. Why don't do those type of scenarios? And
Yeah,
no,
this has been a problem for Disney related franchises since about Rogue One. You have both the
That's
Star
right.
Wars franchises and the Marvel franchises. For every new film, they seem to crash Fandango and the direct ordering from the movie theater websites. This is a predictable event. People know that it's coming. So the question is, why don't they fix it? And I think there's a little bit of monopoly provider in play here because you can't go and get the tickets elsewhere. So just have to wait.
Is it a marketing trick as well to see how popular it is
I
and
I
and,
heard
and put
something like
some
that.
put
Yeah,
some free commercials because
I
they will
have
speak about a movie without any.
I have I have heard about that for bands. That there is some suggestion that marketing professionals working with website designers are not interested in providing the perfect website experience because there's some bragging rights that go along with bands and their tours that they're so popular that their site is crashing. So
and
kind
I
of
think that
this
another.
ugliness has turned into inside baseball with artists.
I think it's something on those lines, and I read on some places that it's also not so accidental, or that they just did not want to load test accordingly, but it generates a scarcity sensation. So people, I mean, oh my god, I need to go and buy the Spider-Man films, and Thanos doing the same thing a few years ago, and one after the other, having all these situations that could be. I mean, could be the monopoly, and could be that you get all those expected downtimes. I mean, I don't know. What was it that bad on the other ones with Rogue One and the? I know that Thanos
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Endgame did a big wiped half of the servers in online servers in the internet.
From Rogue One on, every Star Wars film and every Marvel film would take out servers as soon as tickets were available for sale. So it does beg the question: if it's only happening for Disney films, and not excellent films like West Side Story by Steven Spielberg. I just throw that in there. Um, Maybe it is a little bit of marketing item, and as such, should we exempt them from a perfy because they're manipulating the system?
If it's on purpose, they are using the perf fee on their advantage, I would say.
Under fraudulent pretenses.
Mm, yeah, could be
Yeah,
totally marketing strategy.
no.
It's tough to say because I can say for the Mexican movie theaters, they were not tested. They are not paying that much attention to load testing or anything. If any, I mean, that's another situation. Movie theaters and ticketing sites, I think they were barely surviving this past couple years for obvious reasons. So
Hmm.
maybe that's eating some of the load testing budget. Wishful thinking. I mean, most probably it's just, let's do it later.
Yeah. Similar for the I mean, that comes to the last nominated. I think there is a virus that has produced a
Right.
significant great test for us since a couple of
Crashed a lot of humans.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's
Crashed a
not
lot of
good.
humans, side effects, crashed servers and governments and private enterprises around the world, has shifted the focus of corporate enterprise networks um, for their whole VPN infrastructures, has shifted how we work. And Heinrich, you're right that nominee is the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China, for COVID alpha, beta, delta, gamma. We're up to Omicron, right?
Right.
Okay, so for whole bunches of them that continually crash like waves of new users on servers across the internet. So
I think
you
it's
know that.
it's the first time
Go
we
ahead,
do
Heinrich.
a soak test. Usually we do a soak test for maybe 20 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, maybe a maximum.
Hmm.
But I think the performance team of the COVID is quite impressive. They know how to test a big test. I mean, huge duration of test for sure.
We're going on 600 days with that. So that's
So usually, I don't know
yeah.
about you guys. I do a soak test for 12 hours, maybe 24 hours, maybe in a rare case, 2 days, but not a soak test for like 800 days.
Yeah.
You know, like
Well,
that's a long time.
I mean, and how it may differ from some places that are doing an actual continuous mm, testing or synthetics, which could count a little bit depending on how you organize them and what platform are you using. You may be able to set it up, and especially with these continuous environments, should be more or less a norm nowadays. Now that you're mentioning, leaving some, I mean, not drastical. You don't want to constantly duplicate the load on your system just because you want that super long endurance test, but very much should be, uh, I wouldn't say a standard, but common.
Yes. All right. So we'll ruminate on our nominations. We'll ruminate on nominations. That rolls off the tongue very nicely. Very nice. Ruminate on our
Come
nominations
back to
over.
them kind of in the last 10 minutes of the show, see if we get any more nominees coming
Yes,
in
we might have some
from
people
our
chat us. Which,
listeners.
yeah, I apologize. The URL I tweeted out was completely wrong, and that's because the event was wrong. But Henrik's live stream is streaming right now. That's how it's live because it's a stream. Do you guys Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, does it? I'm more of a radio guy. Not this YouTube stuff is still really kind of foreign to me. Um, anyway, yeah. So a Perfy Award for those aforementioned. But maybe we can have a little bit of a look back, James. So I know I was under the weather, but you had still pulled off a marathon Black Friday as you do every year. Were there any real aha moments this year from the Black Friday marathon?
There were not any really supremely ugly events like we've had in the past. There were spot outages around the globe, just as you might expect, as as Black Friday has become a global event. What we've seen is that the United States was hit first with this broad array of e-commerce outages, and the industry here has begun to stabilize. And then what happened is it went to English-speaking countries. It went to UK, it went to South Africa, it went to Australia, and we had a whole range of outages in those areas. And those are now beginning to stabilize. And now it's showing up in other areas of the world. So we have other countries inside of Africa, inside of South America, where the technology is maturing, and over the next couple of years, we expect to see that it's going to follow a similar path of the United States. Then English-speaking countries will have more stable influence. Now, what I find interesting is that there are these e-commerce hosting platforms like Shopify and things of that nature. These platforms are starting to get more utilized for small firms. And on days like Black Friday, you have this multi-tenant load across a large number of firms in the e-commerce space. And those are beginning to show a large amount of duress and stress. Um, we have already had symptoms of this with the Kardashians that tend to use these pop-up shop style sites like Shopify for hosting, and they will have a spot sale event and they will crash the site. They will crash their site and they will slow down others. So there were some advanced warnings for these e-commerce hosting solutions, and they were not addressed. I expect that probably we'll see that again next year to a greater extent. And then in year three, we'll begin to see some improvements. Multi-tenant is particularly difficult because about the best you can do is you can govern an individual tenant to limit the impact of another tenant. But when all your tenants are e-commerce shops and they're all experiencing the biggest shopping day of the year, how do you apply a governor in that case? Is it based upon who's paying you more? Is it based, is it algorithmic? Who knows? But it's a very difficult problem to solve.
I think it would make sense to separate the workload, um, avoiding having all the retailer on the same node or the same data center or same servers, whatever we can name it,
Mhm.
to avoid too much stress on the same cluster or somehow.
Yeah,
So
Kanye West, Kardashian needs his own data center if he is not to crash, because he is proven to be the lord of website crashes. He can do it no matter where he
Yeah.
goes. Basic white Kanye West T-shirt spot sale. Oh yeah, servers are going down someplace.
Yeah. So there's still a lot of out of the box configurations that that you'll see people adopting things. One of the major things we see now are the GitHub integration. And GitHub, of course, was had an outage recently, but they got acquired by Microsoft, and then they have this sort of algorithm, sort of AI-ish algorithm to go look for, hey, here's code patterns and things that you should inject into your site without thinking about them, without testing them, and we'll just send those right along. And then, boom, I wonder if there's something, James, to the idea that even these platforms are trying to optimize their code based on, well, that person over there, they wrote it that way, so let's just let's just do that. And it works on my machine is the worst, approach to validating that kind of stuff. So there's some innovations that came this year that I think were people really made some pretty serious stink about them. I mean, to some extent, rightfully so. Test your code.
Do we need to test? I thought that we don't need it anymore. I
The
think it was
cloud cures you from that all. You
It's the
never
cloud.
again.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say the person who does deserve a perfie is whoever it was in marketing that said the cloud will never go down and the cloud will scale infinitely. That person has guaranteed the four of us and all the listeners to this broadcast employment for life
Continuous
to
meals.
address that myth that the cloud scales infinitely and to address the myth that the cloud never goes down. And sure, we're picking on Amazon in this case for 3 outages, very tightly grouped in the last 6 weeks. But other cloud providers have had similar issues, not as widely covered as Mark noted. A portion of their infrastructure goes down, server goes down. But Amazon, by virtue of being utilized by so many companies for core infrastructure, and including very large companies, that impact was felt across a very wide swath of the internet.
Awesome.
So
All
maybe
right.
should we start maybe touching few performance questions, or do we have any other perfis to address?
I think there's going to
I,
be
I
more coming.
I hope there's some more coming. So
Perfect or
what do we
questions?
have for question? What do we have for
Mm,
questions, Henrik?
I think we could start. There was a question last week related to what would be the best tool or approach to test cloud native technologies. Maybe people are because the notion of the cloud, people think that testing is obviously different, and so I think we need to reassure them about what would be the recommended approach, the steps that needs to be covered to deliver smoothly and without any stress your test in time and bring value to the project, of course. So, Leandro, James, Mark, do you have any suggestions, recommendation to start on that topic?
Well, if I may, I think we already started to scratch that point where this misconception of the cloud scales infinitely and of course not, and that we need to take into account some of these, how to say, mixing up with what we were mentioning about the out of the box settings, where if you let many of those settings run wild, even if you are diligent and you try to do some load testing, and if you try to push your site and your cloud infrastructure a little bit, you'll see it starts to some degradation, poop is okay. Degradation, poop is okay. And
Mhm.
suddenly, some of those situations where you start to see, like, hey, everything passes flawlessly. We have the most awesome system in the world, and we could not bring it down. Which
And then
it's
you get your cloud bill.
oh yeah, yeah, and you were plugging all those devices, 3 fridges and everything on your electricity, and then the power bill will come, and then you will be a little bit afraid. So it's something that you should not only from the monetary perspective pay attention to, which is very important, pretty much what drives most of what we will be doing, but it's uh, it wastes resources. It may even affect if you leave some of those settings out of the box. Um, in unexpectedly, it can even like backfire to you, or you may end up having too many, I don't know, containers, or the elasticity um, to expand it, to say it in a way. So I don't know. I can ramble around that. Who else wants to ramble now on that?
No, I think one of the things we had talked about before was elasticity, and I think the tip we have for somebody that's like, "Hey, I'm going to run load tests in the cloud." To your point, was you want to maybe set a maximum number of instances, let's say in a Kubernetes or within the actual Elastic conversion, the thresholds that you would set for CPU or memory, or even number of requests. If you get an increase in the number of requests, you can actually spawn other pieces, or a custom setting that you have, something you desire. For load testing, sort of look at what production might be, set a high watermark, because if you do a stress test that's going up and up and up, you'll find that it eventually, like, it never really runs out. It gets faster, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes up and then it gets faster because you keep adding more nodes to the
Resources.
cluster.
On that line as well, I would say not only the settings out of the box for a test. Maybe you just have a test environment in the cloud that you will be spanking a little bit to see if it can take all the utilization that you're going to send to it. But it depends as well. What is the type of load test that you're doing? As we were mentioning earlier, if it's a spike test where you are expecting to have an obscene amount of connections getting into your servers, probably you want to leave that on and check that, okay, you can reach up to billions and billions of users trying to buy Spider Multiverse tickets. And
Yeah.
some others you may just want to limit it. Hey, I'm just doing just a repetition of a load test we did last sprint. So we just need to check that there's no much deviation, freeze that or limit that elasticity up to this
Yeah.
point, and test over that, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But
Actually, Leandro, you made me think of something really good there, which is the scenario with which, how long does it take to spawn a new instance, add it into the load balancer, and start processing requests? You might, the test, if you are going to go to some unknown number of, a million hits per second, tickets for Spider-Man, whatever it is, we're going to sell tickets in a lottery to get on a penis-shaped spaceship to go to outer space. You never know what it's going to be. But there's an interesting spike-shaped test that you might imagine. Anyway, that scenario could just be to measure how long it takes to spawn a new instance and start processing requests with the new instance. And then maybe you do that, you keep pushing it so you spawn it maybe 3 or 4 new instances within the cluster. But you don't need to test it all the way to 1,000 instances. Like, that could be a lot of money just for a test. When a good test is just projecting, here's our average time to spawn and time to maybe collapse or condense or compress the reverse of elasticity, right? So I don't think you have to go to all 1,000 nodes unless you
not,
really want to, right?
I would start with finding the limits of one single instance
Yeah,
before adding any elasticity, because elasticity will just bring more complexity to your test itself. So I think
yeah,
keep in mind that one test has one objective. You don't combine dozens of objectives in one test, because otherwise you will probably have a lot of trouble to analyze and get the right conclusion to of your questions, of all your objectives. So I think
yeah,
start with a single instance, try to tune it if required, and try to find how many what is the maximum throughput that you can handle on one instance, or what are the number of concurrent users. And
yeah,
then from the moment you know the behavior of your one instance application, then you start to add elasticity, and you will not add thousands of nodes, maybe one or two, but you want to, like Mark mentioned, you want to tune how the extra nodes will be added to your app infrastructure
yeah,
during the load,
Yeah.
and make sure that it's arriving in time, because it's nice to have elasticity, but if it takes in real condition 5 to 10 minutes. Usually, when you have huge spikes, yeah, it could be a real nightmare to wait 10 minutes for an extra node for
Yeah.
sure.
And people do things when they spawn a new node. There's like pre-fetching, catching up there's pre green, I'll say, the pre-fetch or pre-setup, pre-spawn. That takes time. And in the time it takes to spawn the new instance, the additional instance, your load may overload the existing running instance. And in a worst case, what I've seen is that you have other thresholds, especially within like a Kubernetes cluster, where you trip an erroneous number. So you get n number of errors, and then that original instance, because of the load, triggers itself to shut down, remove itself from the load. So you end up with this gap between the
You're entirely
existing running
offline.
instance going into an error state and the new instance being able to take new ones. Then guess what happens? You've still got 150% of that load hitting this fresh new instance, and then it starts going into an erroneous state before it can spawn a third instance. So that gap can actually be catastrophic elasticity in the cloud, which Henrik, to your point, I agree, is a very complex thing to test for. And most people that I see running Kubernetes don't think about that. They're like, oh, I'm just going to get my app to run in the containers of the thing. And then they start spawning. It's like, oh, wait a minute. There's some heavy preloading, pre-caching, spin up work that takes too long. And you end up in this weird sort of erroneous state where it's not
Is
elastic at all.
that is almost a set of new metrics and result sets that we want to analyze in these cloud environments that we
Yeah.
didn't use to pay attention to, like as you will very well say, that we used to think on response times all the time, that it goes to the client and the front end and back, no, vice versa, from front end server and back to the client. But nowadays, that response time also includes the new instance response time. How long does it take to come back, and how do they behave? Is a little bit back to that queuing theory, where we have
Yep.
multiple processes that, seriously, what happens when you put every freaking body in the queue at the very same time, when you need to spin up a new container, and as you say, one dies, and then you have a super spike on the next one, and then could be that it decides like, oh, I have no containers, I have no elasticity, no space. Let's bring up 10 at once. And then you'll get lots of a roller coaster
Yeah.
situation that most probably you want to avoid being online.
But there
So
are
Heinrich, I'd like to go back to your single user or single instance item. We see a lot in the cloud of people turning on auto scaling as a way to cover up inefficiency in code. I don't have to
Right.
tune, the cloud will take care of this for me. And these same people are very much divorced from the cost of those decisions. Yes, auto scaling will take care of that, but there's a very high cost associated with that. And woe be to the developer whose auto scaling costs exceed their annual compensation, which can and does happen when you hit auto scaling a lot. So it's to their benefit to maximally tune each individual architectural node. And in fact, if they can get it to run on smaller hardware and not hit auto scaling as often, the cloud bill goes down tremendously. Or get the ability, if it's a microservice, to scale on basically the free tier of nodes across all of a cloud provider. Then your auto scaling is not as terrible when it's done horizontally in such a case.
to add to the scaling approach. I think sometimes you can tune and configure, find the best settings that you can never come up to, and but you never been protected to huge spikes. I mean, sometimes we know that it takes times to get extra instances. So why don't you plan? You know that at 6 p.m., between 6 and 8 p.m., you have 10 times your normal traffic. So in that case, this is what Netflix is doing. They're provisioning a lot of servers during their spike hours, just to handle those spikes. Because otherwise, if you just survive with auto scaling, sometimes you don't survive. You I don't know. You suffer. I would say.
or pre-provision before a spot sale goes out over Twitter and email and Facebook.
It's very similar. If you have any perspective or clairvoyance, most of the time we do, as you say, James, you're gonna do a post for a new product and present it into the world. Or Henrik, as you were saying with Netflix, that yeah, we're releasing a new series, a new movie, something that is gonna catch lots of attention, or unexpected second season, I don't know, something like Game of Thrones when they were releasing the new seasons. Plan accordingly. Do scenarios that go over those expected situations that you will have, and as well align it, because it's huge what you guys said, Henrik and James, on first of the very first single user, single instance is like this. It doesn't matter if you're on the cloud. Everyone should be doing this, like checking for performance, good performance at a unit level, at service level, then single user, some flows, some little things where, again, it's something that also applies in the cloud, but I am sick of still nowadays getting that, hey, you need to performance test this. Okay, sure. I'm already automating something, and hey, this performance sucks. Why no one noticed? Have you even tested? Yeah. Functional, UAT, exploratory. Everyone went through the software, and why no one catch this? It's taking like 10 seconds or things like that. And
No,
similar like
nobody
that.
nobody bothered to ask the question, even during functional testing. No one
Exactly.
said, "Is this fast enough?"
Is that acceptable? Is that
And
okay? As
yeah,
even on UAT tiers, where okay, you are the user. Why didn't you complain at that point of some of these situations? And then kind of scale your test. Start to do average load tests in a single node. Remove all elasticity. Just like make sure that things work well. Because, and that's another one. Being the cloud or being on-prem, most organizations that I have worked with, they want to go straight away to capacity test. Let's slam it and see where it starts bleeding. Don't you want to check the other non-bleeding things before? I'm sure that there are other things that we should be checking, right? That progression is very important to keep it in the cloud as well. Start doing the crazy experiments that we're saying to test for the response time of the nodes and how fast can they spawn and how fast are they destroyed, only after you have done all those sanity and I don't know, common sense tests.
But but it brings to one thing is we need to know, and you need to know your environment pretty well, and you need to also predict. So you need to know the actual traffic that you have in average in production or in other environments. So that's why observability will be clearly super important to add there as well. Without observability, you're not able to test. Without observability, you're not able to validate your releases. You're not able to deploy. You're not able to. So that's, I would say, it's the first brick that you put on the wall of performance is having something that make you understand what is happening and adjust based on what you see.
Um, it seems like we have another question.
Yeah, we have a question. So I just displaying the question right now. So the question is, so thanks Mark for resharing it. What
Yeah.
are the new tools you guys are using in 2021?
It's always
Or we
about
should,
the
or I
tools.
think we should check out in 2022, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
I gotta
uh, so who wants to start?
I would like to give it a shot because it feels to me like this is the ever always a returning question of what's the tool, what's the answer for everything, the universe and blah blah blah. We know it's 42, but um, it's and I'm gonna give a cheap straight answer. All of them, most of them, whatever suits you, and wherever you should use different ones, because I could mention, yeah, I've started to play with these, that, and those, but they are good for some situations, some areas, some type of solutions. I wouldn't suggest to use a web test or browser-based tool. And also, what are you trying to do? Load testing, performance testing? Are you just trying to check what is the performance? Go for some observability tools. Don't focus so much on automation. So that's a wide question. What new tools are we adding, right? I think, Henrik, we're adding lots of observability. I would start with that.
I would
I would
go ahead,
go ahead,
Philip.
Henrik.
Yeah. So
Uh,
I would
um,
I would say that like you mentioned, Leandro, tool there is no magical tools that will do everything for you. So you need to understand what your expect and what you need, and then you will find the right tool for your objectives. But now the last few months I've been trying to implement some tests specifically for Kubernetes, because in Kubernetes there is a lot of, yeah, events that could be dramatic, I would say, or tragic, or, yeah, you don't want to be in at that moment.
Traumatizing.
So I think the what I start and enjoying myself is, of course, using load tests, so you can choose your preferred choice load testing product. So there is plenty of them out there. But I will obviously combine with chaos engineering, so you can do some amazing experiments and figure out if what you have configured, what you have defined in your settings is giving you, is saving your life, or in the opposite, you are completely sweating, because you know that you're going to have outage in production. So I think, again, it depends on what you have to test, what are your objectives. But from my perspective, at the moment, from what I need to do, I combine chaos engineering with load testing, because you can do a lot of SRE stuff with it, and it's very helpful for that, for sure.
And I would even argue a little bit about chaos engineering. It's awesome. It's very useful to apply it, but you don't need it everywhere and always. There are also some situations where it's like, okay, I have a small server, a small solution, just a microservice. Uh, Probably your approach to chaos engineering will be tiny, or use that effort on some other areas. But as a practice, yes, it should be taken into account more widely than it has been so far, especially for the site reliability engineering. That's a mouthful, site reliability. Blah, 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 blah. That we need to start to take into account, because it's where those lines cross in between reliability and performance, where, yeah, if it's down, it's not performing, period.
what I find is, as performance is being embraced earlier and earlier in the life cycle in agile and DevOps environments, it's not so much new tools, it's using existing tools in a different fashion. So looking at the classical RUM and log processing tools, instead of beginning to look at those late in the life cycle just before deployment or associated with performance testing, I will look at deploying those across the entirety of the production lifecycle, including development. So I can begin collecting log data passively. I can begin collecting RUM data passively. and I can begin finding performance issues earlier in the life cycle. I can find those outliers from a resource perspective with profiling. And why is that important? The earlier you can find a performance issue, the cheaper it is to fix because there's less technical debt to unwind. This also speaks to the value proposition for your performance group. The earlier you can begin contributing back, the more valuable your organization will view your contributions and your efforts as well.
Cheaper and faster. Don't forget the earlier.
Everybody likes cheaper, faster. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I will. I'll give a response just to say, first of all, our friend, mutual friend Joe Colantonio over at the Test Guild and the Perf Guild actually had a great post earlier this year, which is like the top load tools of 2021. Leandro, to your point, a lot of the ones that we have traditionally seen, K6, JMeter, Gatling, Artillery, Taurus is on there, and he has a couple other ones, like Locust is a new one for me still. I still love it. But there are always, every year, by the way, if you're not following the Perf Guild with Joe, it's really fantastic. Leandro's been over, we've all been over there doing different things over the years. But it's another great resource in the performance world to pick up things like his blog entries on that, which are great. But it is, there's basic open source load tools and commercial load tools. K6 is a marvelous load tool, kind of in between those two. Henrik, we've all sort of worked for these different tool manufacturers, and they get you so far in terms of technology, and then you really have to put in the brains to kind of figure out how to actually pull off larger load tester performance analysis. I'm going to throw out 2 or 3 tools that are new to me in 2021 that still got my interest. And the first one is called is WRK, which is like a very, very lightweight little web load testing tool. And it's so wonderfully lightweight compared to a full-on JMeter or some of the larger tools that we see that are super comprehensive. It fits in a pipeline really well for like unit level performance testing. Locust is my other tool for that, but I don't work in a Python shop. So a lot of the developers or testers don't know Python as much in the Locust world. But the WRK is an interesting little framework to do like HTTP type benchmarking. It's a little lower level, but you can do some cool stuff with it. So that's one to check out. The other one is a major commercial tool called Honeycomb in the observability world, which is it's a newcomer in the space where Henrik's working for Dynatrace. Like Dynatrace, we all know, has been growing up through digital experience management, and then observability and open telemetry are being fully integrated into the product. But that's another tool. I played around with Datadog this year. It's pretty interesting. I mean, it's also sort of grown some legs. New Relic as well. There's, again, whatever tool you grab onto, if they're still investing in the product, you can find good stuff. But Honeycomb is interesting as a framework.
At least something about Honeycomb. It also uses the Boomerang RUM agent, which is used by Akamai Impulse.
Yeah. So really, there's some cool stuff. There's some ex-Facebook folks, I think, that went and started Honeycomb. So that's one to at least check out if you're brand new into that world. Obviously, Catchpoint would be great. Go check that out. Dynatrace would be great. Check that out. The last one was, now I can't think of it. It'll come back to me. But it was a new. There is a new version of .trace, which is the JetBrains version of the .NET profiling, which gets so close to being a Dynatrace peer path, it's not funny. Like if you just want a peer path, you could get, boy, Henrik, I tell you could get really close to it if you just go with the JetBrains .trace. Of course, it doesn't do anything else. It just does that. But it's a bet that's been a pretty good profiling tool from a .NET world.
On that line, Mark, I may jump and comment on something that you mentioned that I think it's really, really important for everyone who is looking for a tool, um, the language, the development language, how the scripts and the automations are being created, it's super important that shares whatever your team, as you say,
Yeah.
being a local, having a Python on Locust, and no one in my team does anything with Python. Don't push it into your team, especially because if you are paying some attention to the automation pyramid and doing the right automations in the right places, you may want to pass some of that to your developers. If your developers are working on Java, you may want to look for an automation tool that on one point, depending on what level do you want to give it a try, in the tier of the solution, and on what point is it just a continuous automation. As you were mentioning, I've seen Datadog has some cool synthetics where it's just a service, just call it here and there, it keeps up an eye with the performance. Oh, we just need to do a tiny load test integrated in the pipeline. Okay, your developers use Java, give them some JavaScript with K6, or if they are Pythonistas, give them some Locust. So the new tools that you can use here with those solutions and paying attention. I think one thing that I would say I started to use a lot more than in 2020 were those continuous integrations, the tools that were giving us those capabilities, and figuring out the ways with some other tools, like how to integrate big things like Neoload into a Jenkins pipeline, or integrate even our old friend LoadRunner. I had some peculiar experiences there. It's this 2021 was a year of lots of experiments, rather than with specific tools, but how to integrating them all together, interconnecting, and making them a huge swinger party in between all those tools, to see how can we make them interact with each other. Um, yeah,
But I think what from a few years back when we were talking about tools that were designed for developers, especially load testing tools. At the moment, first people were thinking, "Hey, JMeter is a developer tool," but for me, it's because it's using an HTTP proxy. It's not a developer tool.
it's very
It's
visual.
yeah, it is very visual, and so I think the one that was doing a good job uh, was Gatling, and now after that, like Mark mentioned, all those tools, the Locust, K6, and many others came up on the market. And now I think I have no idea, and it's my feeling again. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that the footprint of a Gatling is been sort of is less important than it was a few years back because of all those new dev tools or dev testing tools, I would say, that are taking more and more, becoming more and more important and more popular. So that's, I think, the biggest change on the last 2 3 years. We don't rely anymore on one or two open source framework anymore. We have so much variety and so much options. So that's a great news for us for the market.
But we're putting these tools into the hands of people who really lack the training on how to do really robust performance tests. And this is a trend that continues across our industry. I just spoke with a couple of people last week who had been socially promoted from automation testers to a performance role. This is really no different than promoting a developer to a performance role. There are some shared skills in the development of tests, but there's a whole lot of skills which are unique to the developer and which are unique to the performance tester. And by continuously asking them to take on different roles, we're going to A, impact their productivity as a developer, for one, and B, get some really crappy performance tests. And that just continues to impact our value to the industry.
I
And
think
I got to say, we've been our own kind of worst enemies here because we've tolerated a lot of bad actors delivering services under the guise of performance testers.
I think, James, you're getting into actually our friend Raul Sergio is asking what are the technologies that a performance engineer should study and get certified around them, which goes into what you're saying. People getting from other areas or interested on becoming a performance tester or polishing their skills if they are already, or somehow they got the title, as you say. Some people, I count myself in those situations where, oops, you're a performer. Am I what I should do? What?
Yeah.
And it's all a journey. And what would you recommend to that people that is thrown at that situation and that has to learn new skills? What would be?
There are some foundation class skills. Certainly, you need to be able to develop in whatever the language is of the tool. That's a mechanical skill. But there are other skills related to test design, communications, um, architecture that just need to be in place before you even begin constructing a test. We see these anti-patterns over and over again where someone says, build a performance test, and there are no requirements, and all of a sudden the performance test team is really busy building something, and it came from somewhere and nobody knows quite where, but it's a test. Well, what is a test? What is the requirement that it tests against? Um, don't make a really bad tester a performance tester, or you're going to get a lot of really bad stuff fast. As one of those foundation skills.
Or
Um,
very slow on performing.
or very underperforming, but you're not. We see a lot of tools that are targeted just at response time metrics that offer no opportunity to collect what drives performance, which is the back end, how resources are used. They're not really part of a full solution. And in fact, we've seen a lot of testers who have not had the benefit of training. That's all they know is to deliver response times. That is the end result. That's actually the beginning of the process. You're generating data. A performance test collects response times and it collects measurements of resources. If you don't have both of those in your test, and by the way, resources requires a knowledge of architecture to know what to collect and where to collect it, and then you have to marry these data sets together and provide analysis. Analysis is where you provide value. If you cannot diagnose a performance issue without a tool today, that is, without a performance testing tool, you're not going to be able to diagnose a performance issue with a performance testing tool. Ally yourself with your operational staff and help to understand how they diagnose issues within your architecture, where they look, how they ask the questions, and find a way to automate that as part of your performance testing efforts. So you're collecting the same pieces of data and you can use their same analytical methods. To the questions of what should a performance engineer study? Anytime you study profiling and tools related to that, you're going to become a better performance engineer. The classical profilers are database profilers, code profilers, and then you get into a class of super profilers, which are these items which fit inside of the Java or .NET virtual machine. Tools from Dynatrace and others. These are all excellent tools to take a look at. The how you work translates very well across this entire class of tools because you are looking at where you are spending time in a profiler, and time is dictated by how you are using resources, which then gets to root cause. Um, on the issue of certifications, I'm not a real big fan of certifications in this space. You can get a tool vendor certification that gives you a stamp of minimal level of competence in using the tool. Hopefully, a lot of these credentials are somewhat compromised because the questions are out there, so they can be a little dubious at times. Um, I use a certification as an opportunity to dig really, 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 really deep on interviews. So you may get exactly the opposite of what you intended if you were hoping that that would get you a check mark to get you faster through the system. I'll shut up now and yield the floor to somebody else.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
so Mark, I'm just going to make a small note here. I think you need to first figure out in which environment you're going to involve. If you're going to basically test and deliver things in Kubernetes environment, I think the first step is get yourself comfortable in Kubernetes, understand it, be independent on Kubernetes. Don't rely on anyone, because otherwise, even on your test, when you will have to design, you need to understand how Kubernetes works behind the scenes. So then you will have the right tests aligned to validate some aspect of that. And also, we mentioned it before. I think now with all this open observability movement, there are a lot of great solution out there that allows you to extend the observability that you need to when you deliver your test. So, of course, you want to collect metrics, and we've been used to do that. Of course, you want to have traces. There's a lot of systems that will collect traces, but remember, sometimes, few example, sometimes if you monitor some systems, you will get some indicators, but those indicators doesn't have enough dimensions. By dimensions, when you have a metric, you can have dimensions and you can split, and you can understand if you have a lot of five error, HTTP 5.0x errors. If you have the dimensions, and you can figure out which service is not responding or which service has that problem. So sometimes with if you just monitor, for example, in GNX, the default monitor that won't give you that dimensions. So why don't you utilize logs? Because the logs has all the data that you need, and you could then have the right dimension that you're looking for. So um, try to be smart. Look at what you have, in which environment you're working in, and then you can find the right technology that will just help you on your day-to-day job and make your test better, smarter, and faster. And I think that's important. So I won't, like James mentioned, I'm not a big fan of certifications. You could be a huge expert without certification. Certification for me, it's just a piece of paper. Maybe you need it if you want to search for a job, but it won't make you a better person having that paper. I think you need to trust your uh, technical skills and make and be confident when you deliver. So, and for that, you need to understand which environment you'll be working in. So then you can adjust your skills based on that.
On that line, I would like to add a little bit from what James and Hendrik were explaining. I think on one hand, it depends a lot on what area of performance testing and testing in general are you going to be developing on, because many of us, at least I started as a scripter and was the only thing that I was doing in the realm of performance testing, script, and just in that little area, that's a huge world where you can specialize and become a very good tester. And if that is the role that you're looking for or what you are going to be doing in performance, you should get deep into the tool that you are requested for the job that you're going to be doing and understand the practices. I mean, even for just scripting, there are best practices, there are big no-nos that you should not be doing. And in general as well, if you are in charge of diagnosing defects or bottlenecks or things, you may want to get deep into observability. You may want to understand some APMs, monitoring tools, analyze logs. Or if you are in charge of a um, performance and load testing team, you may want to get also into management tasks and get very good at what is agile, what is this scrum thing, why am I getting into these meetings, what is the goal for all of that. So like in the kitchen, there are so many specialties. You can become a dessert specialist, you can be a very good smoker, like some of the people in this call, that you can smoke big pieces of beef, or you can just bakery. depending on what is your specialty, performance testing gives you a huge set of possible skills. Poor of the one of us that at times you are the performance guy. You have to more or less know and understand everything. And as I think most of the people here on the stream may share, like, yeah, you're thrown there and you're the performance person, and you may have to pick up a little bit of all of these skills. It's very, very important that you identify what is needed, because it can go even to the point of it's just communication. You need to be able to translate findings that are very technical in jargon and weird words that if you pronounce them to a CA level person in your organization, you'll get them to sleep right away. So it's it's a set of skills depending on what is the situation that you're thrown at in the performance realm. And now on the certification side, I do share the feeling with what James and Henrik have mentioned. I don't love them, to be nice, but I see the value on some of them. I understand that if for a job, or if your organization is asking to keep a job or to apply for a job, to have X or Y certification, definitely go for it, attack it. And but I think it's more on the requests that you should worry about them. But on the other side, I think it's huge what you will learn and how good you will get if you start to study for any certification, even if the ones that are low level. When you start to look at some of those, okay, I need to learn what is this stress test, and you start studying for them, you will get something out of it. You'll learn, you'll grow. And some of these areas, Henrik, I'm gonna give a free ad here, but I like the ones that, as an example, Dynatrace has on the platform, that you can go and start learning and prepare for some of those certifications, but just get your free trial, start learning about those things. Most of the tools, software, and practices give you some of this free material that you can start working and learning, preparing for a certification. Again, if you're a scripter, get certified in the tool, find a way, probably maybe good. But in the end, what is important is that you get the knowledge for what is the thing that you will have to do in the end. Sorry, I went super lengthy, but it's a tough topic.
Mark, you wanted to say something before I jumped in?
Yes, I want to shamelessly promote myself. Is that allowed in the PerfBytes? I think that's allowed, right?
Are you saying that you have
without
you have a Mark program?
Yes, you can become a certified performacologist in the new year following the performacology posting videos. There's not actually a cert act. You can't become certified. There is no such thing as a performacologist unless you're me. But we that's one thing, is we have a whole bunch of new videos that will be intermediate, beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels of performance generally. So we'll talk about the core things that James talked about: CPU, disk memory, network, and how those things work architecturally across an architecture. Basically follow the OSI stack and basically learn how performance works between stacks, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a key part of it. I think that's an important thing to understand, that these systems are big, and you can find very, very small performance issues in small systems, but then imagine, 100 million of them running at the same time. So tune into performacology as we get that rolling in the new year. I have some videos already put together, which are kind of the intro videos. We're still learning a bit of it myself. The other thing is, there are classes and trainings out there that you'll find through the online world. I've done some with Test Bash. We've done them with STPCon over the years, the Perf Guild. So you can kind of put together a master course for 2022 and start researching when courses are being offered by either us as instructors free webinars sometimes with different. Leandro is going to be doing some amazing work with K6 and Grafana stuff in the new year, so that's pretty exciting. So you'll be able to follow Leandro. Following the Is It Observable channel is great, but I'm also doing a sort of high level intro to load and performance and stress testing, and through our friends at Coveros. They used to be they picked up from the Sticky Minds world or the TechWell world, the training part of that in the virtual thing. So that's coming, I think, January, February. If you want to join me for sort of an overview course for load and performance, then go in deeper in a specific technology, I think is a great idea. So there's new stuff happening in 2022 to just keep, what did you learn? Keep notes, keep your own journal of, I've done, I feel pretty good about network, feel pretty good about, CPU and kind of how code runs, but I don't really understand IO storage, or I don't really understand sort of memory issues, memory leaks, memory buffers, handles. Maybe there's something in a specific app stack, Java, .NET, Node, Python, you name it. So yeah, I think there's ways for you to sort of journal as you learn your architecture. Hey, this is something I'd like to learn more about. I can't get certified in it unless you really fall in love with Oracle, and then you want to become a certified Oracle person, and you can go to the training and you can just eat and drink and sleep Oracle performance all day long forever. But I don't recommend that, to be honest with you. But you can buy, I've got 4 books, they're all like this thick, just on Oracle performance, query tuning, storage engine, database query optimization stuff, because I was working at a shop that was seriously dependent on Oracle for performance. Did I get certified? No. Did I read the books cover to cover? No. But I definitely was able to go find a chapter and just deep dive that chapter when we hit a specific problem and I needed to speak
Mark,
intelligently.
I think now is a good point to talk about what we've done in 2021 on PerfBytes Press and what is coming on PerfBytes Press in 2022. We kicked off the year by getting Leandro's book out the door. If you have not purchased it, you want Leandro's Hitchhiker's Guide to Load Testing. We added to that my interview guide by the end of the year, how to interview performance test professionals. I have a commitment from Scott Moore, so we're breaking news here that he and I are going to be doing a field guide for the new performance tester. For all of those individuals who are thrown into this role, oh my God, where do I go? What do I do? How do I operate? How do I add value? That is a core tenet of what is coming there. We'll also be taking a look at integrating better with DevOps in the coming year. And Mark, I believe you have committed to a book before the end of 2022 as well. And I'm working on Heinrich right now. Expect to see other authors to come in and out as well. We've also published a book in the security space. Something that we're doing a little bit differently for a lot of our books is we're not going for the book that can kill a small rodent. Not the 200, 300 page book. We're going for something that's 100 pages or less. It's easy to consume. It's full of content, which is useful and applicable. And it's something that you can toss in your backpack and carry with you, or as an ebook that you can carry with you as well. And that's aligned with our mission to make all of you more effective and more valuable in the delivery of performance services. Heinrich, back to you.
Yeah. So yeah, give a big applause for PerfBytes, because I think the Leandro's book is awesome, and all the books that will come soon, they are just very useful. So yeah, stay tuned. You can read, you can watch, you can do a lot of stuff to get trained and to get better in the performance world. And we will try to also produce content for you. So if you're lost in the field, if you're completely in the forest, dark in night, freezing, yeah, check it out on YouTube. check out on PerfByte Press, and we probably can help you with some content there, of course. There. I think it's starts. We can start to conclude this holiday
Closing up.
special PerfBytes. I think because it's
Yeah,
we've
one
been
of the
1 hour
things
and
that
20 minutes of live. Go
one
ahead.
of the things we had done, Henrik, was sort of, are there any New Year's resolutions around performance that you will try to stick to in the new year, Henrik?
I would, from my perspective, it's not a resolution about performance. Somehow, it's related to my YouTube channel. I'm gonna work on shorter videos because I like when I do something, I start to do a huge content covering everything and do too much. And I know that sometimes people want to get to straight to the point. So yeah, I promise you, I'm gonna work on very specific topics, shorter. So then, if you're searching for something, it will be easier to pick the right video for you. So this is my big resolution for the year 2022, and also 2022 is the year of the live stream because we're gonna do more. I promise with PerfBytes, I will also do live streams with Is It Observable, and so stay tuned.
Cool. I'm not gonna one up you, but I'm going to take the challenge of a New Year's resolution and launch PerfBytes, not PerfBytes. James and I talked about this a long time ago. Is very, very short form PerfBytes, just one idea, 10 minutes podcast, maybe a video, but mostly I think just audio. We'll see. PerfBytes. You saw it here. I have to come up with a logo. PerfBytes. Maybe it's like a PerfByte with a
It's it's
two.
uh it's just a nibble.
It's a nibble. It could be a nibble. A perf nibble.
That's
That's
half
it.
a bite
So Henry,
for those of you who are paying attention.
yes. So, Henrik, let's set some objectives for that. And yeah, ask us anything. We had most of our questions were all about performance stuff, and we did see Clara joined us again, which is very, very nice. So, shout out to everyone who's actually listened. But yeah, PerfBytes. That's what going to be my New Year's resolution right there. New Year's performance resolution. James, what do you got? What do you think for yourself? Anything?
I say at least 4 books on performance this year through PerfBytes Press. I think we can do better than that. If you are and if you are in command of a topic related to performance, and when I say in command of a topic, you can speak extemporaneously on that topic for about an hour. Get in touch with me or Heinrich or Mark or Leandro because you've got at least a 100-page book trapped in your head. Let's get it out. Let's get it on paper. Let's get it published. And let's make it available to the broadest possible audience so that they can take advantage of what you've captured in your career. You do not have to be a 200-page, 300-page author to get published. We will get it out the door and we will make it look great. We'll make you look great, and we'll make the industry more effective and more valuable.
Leandro.
Okay, so the last one. Well, first of all, I share it with Henrik and Mark. I think big objective, and I better do. I'm gonna be creating more content, helping here on PerfBytes Espanol, and more endeavors that I will announce soon. Which, yeah, definitely more content around performance testing, helping you to improve your practices and methodologies. Definitely is a must. This 2022 is going to be a very active year. Hopefully, more conferences, and that we managed to finally get to be in person in any of those. And following on James' comments, the second part, or yeah, the sequel of my book is in progress. I have been already working on it. It's sadly going to break the mold a little bit from what James is mentioning. Is going to be, again, not super long, but it's going to be a standard size book talking about how to do agile performance testing, some best practices, getting away from the first part that was only around waterfall-y load testing. Now it's going to be all around agile, how to eat this thing and attack it as an elephant, a little bit at a time, but work in progress. And let's see what else comes on this 2022 and what other things improve as well. I would say I want to start to make Henrik, you are already doing some awesome things video wise, audio wise, make it more entertaining, more creative, or even sillier. And let's see. But yeah, and as well, I also want to thank Clara, Raul, and Praveen and everyone else that is listening for your questions, for paying attention, and for whoever is looking this in the future. Thank you very much for watching this or hearing,
Yeah.
listening.
So, Leandro, are you going to get what's going to happen? Is it going to be a hitchhiker's theme? Like, well, maybe like backpacking for performance, agile performance?
The restaurant at the end of the Agile universe.
Well,
That
I was thinking, and it's more or less work in progress. Is thank you for the agile fish, but let's see. It's
that could be, or you could write the entire book in the form of Volgon poetry.
oh,
Oh,
that's yeah, no, maybe.
Maybe
Yeah.
not the
I
best
But
found
move.
a lump
speaking
of
of
green putty in my
poetry,
arm one morning.
we already did, and I don't know for the people listening in Spanish, Spanish speakers here. PerfBytes Español had this year, 2021, a holiday special, end of the year, where I did a small story of the Perf Grinch, how this Perf
Yeah.
Grinch wanted to waterfallize everything in his performance process, slowing down the agile team, um, and getting a frozen environment and all of those things. Poem kind of rhymes, hopefully not that well, but if you want to go and take a look, I think it went okay, and hope you enjoy that little poem story or the thing
The
that it is.
Perf Grinch. Habla español. ¿Cómo se dice Grinch? Is there a Grinch? Is it just Grinch in Spanish?
Yeah, it's El Grinch, but here is El
El
Perf
Grinch.
Grinch.
Awesome. The Perf Grinch. You need to create a Twitter just for the Perf Grinch.
Oh, challenge accepted. Let's see.
Challenge accepted. Perf Grinch. Beautiful. All right, Henrik. Are
All
we
right,
wrapping up?
Yeah, I think it's closing the year 2021. Thanks for all the one that has been watching. And as you see, now it's the area we are now PerfByte live on YouTube and many systems. So it's just amazing. So I'm so happy about it. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned. We will organize other live events. So if you have any questions, anything, drop us, and we would love to answer all of this. All right.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
everybody. Take care. Happy
Thank
2022.
you.
May it be
And of
awesome.
course, thank you to
Happy
our sponsors as
2022.
always. Right? So between Tricentis, Neotis, now Tricentis, Flood, now Tricentis, Tricentis basically all day long. Thank you very much. We appreciate this. So shout out to them if you are looking for stuff. Dynatrace, we'd normally be going to Dynatrace Perform, but we'll find out from Henrik whether that can even happen or not. So we might be doing something fun just that week anyway, covering what's being announced. Obviously, a shout out to Catchpoint, APM, and Ryan Folk Consulting, who have been sponsors of the News of the Damned. But thank you very much for their support. We appreciate that, and we'll see what happens in the new year. So,
And
yeah,
thank you
thanks,
to
everyone.
everyone who is watching and making more or less this possible. PerfBytes loves you all.
All right. It's time to close. Have a great end of the year and see you soon for another
Adios.
live stream. See you.
Feliz Navidad.
Bye.
Happy New Year.